Imagine a country torn apart by war for more than 40 years suddenly taking on one of the biggest water projects in Asia. A project so massive it could change the future of Afghanistan and spark tension with its neighbors. We're talking about the Qosh Tepa Canal, a man-made river cutting through the heart of a landlocked nation. Why is Afghanistan building this now? What does it mean for Central Asia? And could this canal lead to a new water war? Let's dive in. Formed by the confluence of the Vaksh River and Punj rivers, the mighty Amu Darya is one of Central Asia's largest rivers. In its upper course, this river even serves as a natural border, separating northern Afghanistan from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. Further downstream, it flows through Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan before finally emptying into the Aral Sea. But here's the big story. In March 2022, Afghanistan's new Taliban government launched a massive water project, what they're calling the largest artificial canal in all of Asia. This ambitious venture is known as the Qosh Tepa Canal. Stretching across 3 northern Afghan provinces, the canal will be a staggering 285 kilometers long. That's about 177 miles, and will be built in 3 major phases. The first phase is already complete, covering 108 kilometers, 67 miles, from Kaldar district to Daulatabad district in northern Balkh province. The second phase, now more than 90% completed, will extend the canal another 177 kilometers, passing through Balkh's Daulatabad district and continuing into Jauzian and Faryab provinces. Finally, in the third and final phase, the Afghan government plans to branch off sub-channels from the main canal, creating a full irrigation network to surrounding farmlands. Now, let's talk size and capacity. The Qosh Tepa Canal will be an engineering giant. About 150 meters wide, that's nearly 500 feet, and 8.5 meters deep, almost 28 feet. Its water-carrying capacity, an incredible 668 cubic meters per second, which is roughly 23,600 cubic feet of water every single second. The original plan was to finish phases 2 and 3 by 2028, but at the speed this project is moving, experts believe it could be completed even sooner. Construction is entirely in the hands of a state-owned company, the Afghanistan National Development Corporation. Right now, thousands of Afghan workers are on site, pushing the work forward with more than 3,300 machinery units. More than 150 subcontractors are also involved in this project, with about 60 contracting companies actively working on Phase 2 alone. What about the cost? Initially, the estimate was around $500 million, but that figure has already shot past $680 million. According to Afghan officials, the entire project is being funded domestically, mainly through revenues from coal mines. However, some experts warn that Afghanistan will face serious financial and technical challenges in not only completing the construction but also maintaining the canal in the long run. So, why is this project such a big deal for Afghanistan? For starters, once completed, the Qosh Tepa Canal will irrigate a staggering 550,000 hectares. That's over 1.3 million acres of farmland. Officials claim this will make Afghanistan self-sufficient in several key crops. But that's not all. The project is expected to create around 250,000 jobs. And let's be honest, Afghanistan desperately needs them. Back in 2021, the unemployment rate was around 13.3%. And under Taliban rule, it's likely climbed even higher, though exact figures aren't available. So far, this sounds like a dream project, right? But let's dig deeper. Why exactly is Afghanistan building this canal now? For more than 4 decades, Afghanistan has been caught in one war after another. First the Soviets, then the Americans. In all that chaos, the country never had a chance to rebuild its infrastructure. Whatever irrigation system Afghanistan had before was either destroyed or left to rot. Here's the reality. Northern Afghanistan sits upstream of several rivers fed by glaciers and snow-capped mountains. Yet, because of decades of conflict and zero investment in water management, Afghanistan has never been able to use this water effectively. In summer, when rivers swell, the lack of dams means the country faces flash floods. In winter and dry months, when water runs low, canals run dry, leaving farms parched and entire regions in drought. Previous governments, bogged down by war, did almost nothing to fix this. Foreign allies weren't keen on financing major infrastructure projects in such an unstable environment either. And so, a country where agriculture makes up more than 30% of GDP kept slipping deeper into crisis, struggling to feed its growing population. When the Taliban took over in 2021, they didn't have a choice. They needed a mega project that could stabilize the economy, create jobs, and perhaps most importantly, boost the government's credibility on the global stage. But there's also a political angle. Historically, the Taliban faced strong resistance from Northern Alliance forces in this region. Completing this canal will not only strengthen their grip on the north, but also help them win local support. Interestingly, this is not a brand new idea. Plans for a canal from the Amu Darya go back to the 1970s. Feasibility studies were done during previous governments, but the project never got off the ground, until now. The Taliban wasted no time. They prioritized it immediately and kicked off construction at lightning speed. And that's not all. They have several other infrastructure projects in the pipeline too. But here's the catch. The Amu Darya isn't just Afghanistan's river. It also flows through 3 Central Asian countries, and some of them depend heavily on it for water. So you can bet there's been pushback. And there has. So what are the objections? And do they have any merit? Let's talk about that next. When work began on the Qosh Tepa Canal, 2 downstream countries, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, voiced serious concerns. And honestly, you can see why. Both nations rely heavily on the Amu Darya for agriculture. Take Turkmenistan, for example. During the Soviet era, they built the Karakum Canal, which still irrigates about 1.25 million hectares of farmland. Turkmenistan's cotton industry alone accounts for 10% of the country's GDP, and it depends almost entirely on this canal. If Qosh Tepa diverts a significant amount of water, Turkmenistan's economy could take a big hit. Uzbekistan faces the same problem. Cotton makes up 17% of its GDP, and it too relies heavily on the Amu Darya for irrigation. Experts estimate that once the Qosh Tepa Canal is fully operational, water reaching these downstream nations could drop by at least 20% immediately, with that percentage growing over time. In response, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan have officially raised objections. How does Afghanistan answer? By pointing to the 1992 Almaty Agreement, which divided Amu Darya's water among Central Asian states after the Soviet collapse. But here's the twist. Afghanistan was not a party to that agreement. Under that deal, based on a 1987 protocol, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan agreed on allocations. Kyrgyzstan would get 0.4 billion cubic meters, Tajikistan 9.5, Uzbekistan 29.6, and Turkmenistan 22 billion cubic meters annually, all out of the river's average 75 billion cubic meters of flow. Afghanistan? They simply assumed it would use 2.1 billion cubic meters. That's just 2.8%, even though Afghanistan contributes over 12% of the river's water. So Kabul argues, we never signed this deal, and we contribute significantly more water than we use. Therefore, we have the right to take more. Sounds fair, doesn't it? Especially when you learn Afghanistan plans to extract about 10 billion cubic meters annually through this canal. Even so, the Afghan government insists it will consider downstream neighbors, mainly because it depends on them for electricity imports. In fact, there's already been a meeting between Afghan and Uzbek delegations to discuss the issue. But here's an interesting twist. Turkmenistan might use this dispute as leverage for another major project, the TAPI pipeline, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India. This $10 billion natural gas pipeline has been stalled for years, largely over security concerns in Afghanistan. Now, with the Taliban in power, Kabul could guarantee pipeline security in exchange for Turkmenistan easing its objections to the canal. Smart move, right? But the objections don't stop there. Western experts have raised engineering concerns too. They claim the Taliban kept costs low by leaving the canal bed unlined, basically bare earth instead of concrete or clay lining. That means massive water loss through seepage, possibly up to 22%, according to a German hydrology institute. That's not the only problem. Saline groundwater could seep into the canal, contaminating the water and damaging crops. Later, when that salty water drains back into the Amu Darya, it could make things even worse for downstream countries, where salinity is already a serious problem. And then there's sedimentation. Experts warn that at the intake point, sand and silt could build up, making maintenance expensive and difficult. Some even argue that the canal could be the final blow for the already dying Aral Sea, one of the world's greatest environmental disasters. In 2025, Kazakhstan, as chair of the International Fund for Saving the Aral Sea, has proposed using regional platforms to initiate cooperative dialogue on the issue. Despite all this, the Taliban government is determined. For them, this isn't just about water. It's about proving competence and reshaping Afghanistan's future. The Qosh Tepa Canal isn't just a construction project. It's a gamble. If it works, it could turn barren lands into fertile farms, feed millions, and pull Afghanistan out of economic despair. If it fails, it could waste billions, destroy ecosystems, and ignite conflicts over water. So what do you think? Will this mega project reshape Afghanistan's destiny or drown in its own challenges? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video interesting, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dive stories from around the world.